help me welcome to the stage Mary Kyriakidi from Kantar.
Καλημέρα. Καλημέρα σε όλους. Νομίζω ότι είναι φανερό από το όνομά μου ότι μιλάω την ίδια γλώσσα. But this presentation will be in English, okay? And I'm here to talk about the 6 beats of data-driven brand growth. And yes, AI comes into this because we're going to talk about how to win the hearts and minds in the agentic economy. So AI is everywhere. It's, well, it's watching a number of things. It's been watching ads. It's scanning labels. It is actually creating our own shopping list for us. So imagine this. We're no longer marketing for humans. We're marketing for humans and AI because we want to connect with humans emotionally, but we also want to be picked up by machines. So in this case, you know, you blend in. It's lovely to blend in, but in this case, you blend in and you become invisible. You stand out, as Peter was saying, you get picked. Right, so what these are 6 bits that the reality is that, you know, I talked about standing out, but the truth is a little bit more nuanced than this. So that's why we brought in the 6 in this. Right? Because each one of these beats shapes brand perceptions that help us stand out. Beat number 1, can you be always meaningful and be a little bit more different than your own competitors? And I'm going to tell you why I'm saying this, because we make 400 billion choices every year. And as a result of these choices, many brands, in fact, most brands, disappear. A few survive, and a selected few thrive, no matter the economy. Okay? And what we've done at Kantar is we've dug into a massive database on how people feel and what people actually do. And we realized that the winners play a different game. To grow, brands must be meaningfully different to more people, because perceptions do matter. If we build brands that stand out for both humans, human minds, and machines, so that we get picked up in the AI summaries, then yes, then we grow. Let's look at the data. The data says that brands with meaningful different attract, or sell rather, 5 times more than brands without meaningful difference. And in fact, they're better positioned for growth. Instagram is a great example because they have a brand equity. Their brand value skyrocketed over the last few years. And the reason why that happened is because they blended culture, creators, shopping, and they found their meaningful difference. In fact, they shaped consumer choices before people had a chance to look elsewhere. The second bit is about being present, being more present, and being at the right price. Now, to be present at all the buying occasions is nearly impossible. But, and I can prove it actually, because our data says that only the top 5% of brands actually achieve an over 80% presence in a category. But the reality is that brands that do it well, they win big, because those that do well, those that are actually more present in their category, they attract 7 times more buyers than those brands that are visible or actually present in just half of those occasions. But you know what? Being present is not just about being seen. Every touch point matters here. We're talking about your packaging, your product range, your distribution, even how much you lean into promotions. And your pricing. You know, price is very important in a sense that It needs to be matching your worth, because that's when consumers feel comfortable. And not many brands, actually, a few brands, let's put it like that, don't get this right, surprisingly. Because let's look at this one here. There are many outliers. This is data from Brand Z, and it shows that for brands with margin opportunity, these brands, green, top green, they are underpriced versus their equity. So effectively, they're leaving money on the table. But for some other brands, there is a margin risk where the red bit is yellow, red. So these brands are overpriced versus their equity, versus what they're worth in people's minds. So in effect, what's happening here is that they're likely leaking share. Knowing where you sit on this map is an excellent point for a meaningful P&L conversation, but also it allows you to know, should I strengthen my brand even more before I engage in a price correction? And this is a case study from a UK skincare brand that did exactly that, right? They increased their price by 40%, 14, right? Not 40, in 2025. And we did econometric modeling to simulate how much volume they would have lost if they hadn't strengthened, like injected, brand investment. And that percentage was 10%. But because they did the brand strength first, that activity first, their brand became less elastic, right? Became more inelastic. And as a result of that, they lost only 7% in volume. And in fact, they increased revenue by 7%. So a brand's equity contributed, or shall I say marketing, contributed 76% to that effect. You see, we see time and again in our research that when value, worth, matches the price, people are willing to pay more. The next two beats come together because it's about disruption and consistency. And I suppose the message here is, can you disrupt but not drift? Right, to be consistently disruptive or disruptively consistent is a symbiosis, actually. It's not an oxymoron, because there's, I mentioned Brand Z team before, right? There's a team that analyzes around 20,000 brands over 500 categories in as many as 54 markets. And what they found is that brands that master these two, consistency and disruption, grow more, okay? These are the brands that remain resilient. So it is, in fact, a powerful combination. Let's look at the data, specifically the data on this one. Growth, this is data from 20 years of learnings from Brand Z. Only 29% of growth comes from established brands. The remaining 71% comes from disruptor brands. But how do brands disrupt? Very seldom do they invent something new. This is not how they do it. The best disruptors out there do three things, right? They join cultural conversations, they join big cultural conversations, and they have a strong point of view. Then they find new platforms, their audiences, communities to connect with. And then thirdly, they team up with the right people, with the right teams, with the right partners, because they want to stay fresh and relevant. So being bold, but actually being timely, is equally important. They are equally important factors for being a disruptor, because you need to be in tune with what matters right now. Let's look at some disruption in action. But I'm going to ask you first, actually, I'm really curious to know, who knows here what mukbang is? Some people do, but I will explain for everyone else that mukbang is a viral trend from South Korea that it's about broadcasting, and I'm glad we haven't eaten yet. But it's a viral trend from South Korea that gets people to broadcast their big, messy meals. And so they don't eat alone anymore, they turn it into a social event. I'm going to show you how Chipotle have tapped into this trend, and they partner up with what is it? Wonder Skin is a makeup brand, and it's TikTok famous, right? So these two brands came together, and they created Lipotul, right? So it will become clear with their mukbang video how they've done it, but it's simply because the makeup hasn't come off, right? Let me show you.
I'm going to be testing this lip stain to see if it's truly guac-proof. Chipotle and Wonder Skin teamed up together to make the cutest, oh my god, it's green. This lip stain right here, the perfect shade, it's giving brat. Yes.
And my favorite part right here is peeling it off. Oh my god, it's so satisfying. The prettiest pink that's transfer proof. You're kidding. Now comes the fun part. I'm going to be testing it. And let's be so freaking for real right now. This is the only acceptable
Right, you get it. They were eating tacos, they were eating burritos, and the lipstick was not coming off. Right, but there are other ways to do it. So Dove and Pinterest have come together to retrain the algorithm to think about and generate more diverse images of real beauty. And Dettol, we often forget that it started as a medical disinfectant, and then through the power of human storytelling, it transitioned rather into family gem care. So in both cases, it is emotional resonance that we see that gets the brand sticking to people's minds and hearts, but it's also the content is digestible, referenceable, right? So it's very likely to be cited and recommended by AI. Right, we talked about disruption, but what about consistency? And we heard a lot from Tom about consistency. And I'm gonna say maybe the best way to describe it is that consistency is like leaning into your brand's heritage, but at the same time, dialing up your differentiation, okay? So in a way, it's timeless and timely together. And consistency, and I'm going to give you the stat that you can see on the screen, 20 years of learnings from Brand Z tell us that brands with consistent perceptions grew 111% more than other brands, which is which is a difference that is worth billions, okay? So I need to be clear that consistency is not about repeating the same thing endlessly. That would be boring for everyone. It is about staying true to your core. Again, Tom talked about that a lot, but stretching your DNA as culture evolves, but you stay true to your core, okay? And lack of consistency, no one wants that, because then you are in an incoherent mess, both for the brains of people, but also for machines. They won't pick you up. Like, a brand that is doing it very well is Marmite. We all know the core message, love or hate it, but with every campaign, they make it bolder, fresher, funnier, okay? And we can see this is Rescue, this is Baby Scan, very funny. I would encourage you to watch them. So I suppose the secret, it's not a secret, it's a trick. You stay true to your core, but you keep on surprising people. Right, I'm going to introduce to you beat number 5 by saying a sentence that you heard before, earlier this morning. Brands aren't just fighting for attention, they're fighting for connection in a world that is bursting with lots of littles. Tom. So we're talking about hundreds of channels and thousands of creators and pretty much a million ways to get lost in the noise, right? So how do you make sure you stay truly connected? Well, one way to do this, or the first way to do this, is to show up. You've got to show up. And our data shows that if you go wide, you go big, okay? But simply showing up is not enough. You've got to show up and show up coherently. This chart might be familiar. You saw it a little bit earlier, but it's a very important chart because synergy is not just a buzzword. What the data shows is that to make your idea, or rather making your idea flow coherently across the channels, has become 2.5 times more important than it was a decade ago, right? So this is what turns the lots of littles into a big brand idea. And the real game changer here are the creators. And it's an economy that is set to double and it wasn't small to begin with last year, but it's set to double by 2028. So clearly brands are building their armies of creators, right? But how do you make sure that all these sparkles that are being created are aligned? So the first thing to do, I suppose, or the first thing to think about is that they are not just content producers, they are cultural shapers, because they do shape culture, with 71% of people telling us that they discover a new brand on TikTok. They really are the gatekeepers of brand relevance. So we need to get out of thinking about them as content machines and thinking about them as true brand catalysts. A brand that has done this very well is Heineken. So this is their campaign, Desperados. Yes, it's an award-winning campaign. The reason why it's here is because it's a masterclass in working with creators. They gave them freedom. They didn't just treat them. They used over 70 creators in their campaign, and they didn't just treat them as another channel. They gave them the freedom to inject fresh cultural energy into everything that they did. And we're talking about, for everyone, from Grammy-winning producers to nail artists and choreographers. They all turned this, into the heartbeat of the campaign. And they drove engagement like no way a boardroom could have planned. So there are many ways to work with creators, of course, but I wouldn't say micromanaging them is a good idea, but co-lead, or sometimes even let them lead, like we see here, is a great way to see your brand come alive in places that you least expected. Right. We're almost at the end, because this is the last beat. It's about putting the B word in the C-suite. And by B word, I mean brand, okay? So the role of brand has never been more important and more strategic. Because, as we've been saying throughout, it's now designed for human brains, it's designed for machines as well, but it's still struggling to get airtime in the boardroom. Why is that? I suppose to some extent, it's because the leadership reports tend to focus on slower moving metrics, like faster. Sorry, they're faster moving, very fast. Metrics like sales, and less on the slower moving, the ones that shift the consumer perception metrics. And this, I suppose, is human nature. We tend to gravitate towards what changes fast, what's easier to measure, almost like, we're humans after all. But there's also now another reason. It's because brand equity still remains like a mystified notion. It's an elusive notion for many. And I know this very well because one of the most frequent questions I get from marketers is, how do I quantify the strength of my brand? And you know what? I answer confidently because I'm armed with data. I talk about the 3 layers of the framework, the meaningfully different and salient framework. It measures the value of brand equity that is accumulated in people's heads. Its impact on share, its impact on penetration, its impact on willingness to pay, and future growth potential, right? So from these dimensions, these 3 dimensions, some powers are created. I'm not going to talk to you about all these because then it would be a truly geeky presentation. But the reality is that these 4 powers that are coming out of these 3 dimensions are all connecting to financials that matter because they change perception into real finance figures. So all 7 link to financials that matter, right? And we know this because we have proven time and again that brands that achieve higher scores on these 7 dimensions, on these 7 metrics, perform better financially. So I would say this is the data to use. If you want to convince the board that brand deserves a seat at the table, just to be in the board, to be reported every quarter, this is the data to use. And then you see gradually that the C-suite becomes more interested in understanding how do we increase lifetime value, not just sales. And in fact, you see yourself that you're becoming more fluent in that CFO language. And those silos between the two teams, marketing and finance, get broken down. So there we go. These were the 6 beats. 6 interconnected drivers of brand growth, right? In a world that is shaped by answer engines, but also forever evolving consumer expectations. But I wouldn't see them as a checklist. It's not a checklist. See them as a rhythm, right? It's a rhythm that makes your brand present, meaningful, resilient, so that you stand out and you don't get flattened into parity. For me, that rhythm is a rhythm that connects creativity to commerce, equity to profit, and gives marketing a louder voice where growth decisions are being made. Thank you.